Hey guys, welcome to our new video. This story name, The Haunting of Blackwood Asylum. Pennsylvania has always been known for its deep forests, old coal mines, and historic towns. But among the many eerie places that whisper with forgotten voices, one name stands out, the abandoned Blackwood Asylum. Once a grand institution built in the late 1800s to house the mentally ill, Blackwood Asylum had a dark history. Patients were subjected to experimental treatments, many of which were borderline torture. Electroshock therapy, ice baths, and solitary confinement were common practices. By the 1950s, the asylum had become infamous for the mysterious disappearances of both patients and staff. The records were vague, and official reports often contradicted witness accounts. Then, in 1967, a massive fire broke out, consuming the asylum overnight. The official report stated that 47 people perished in the fire, but locals believed the number was much higher. Since then, Blackwood Asylum had remained abandoned, a decaying structure hidden deep within the Pennsylvania wilderness. Few dared to venture near it. The ones who did often returned with stories of whispers in the dark, of shadowy figures lurking in the corners, of doors slamming shut on their own. Some never returned at all. A daring exploration. It was the summer of 2023 when four college friends, Ethan, Sarah, Lucas, and Ava, decided to investigate Blackwood Asylum. They were amateur paranormal investigators with a small YouTube channel called Ghost Hunters of Pennsylvania. The stories about the asylum intrigued them, and they saw it as an opportunity to grow their audience. Armed with flashlights, cameras, and a spirit box, the group set out for Blackwood Asylum just before sunset. The drive took them through winding roads, deep into the forest where cell service disappeared entirely. As they approached, the asylum loomed before them like a skeletal corpse, its stone walls cracked, windows shattered, and the iron gates rusted shut. The place felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of centuries of suffering. "Are we sure about this?" Ava whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Come on, it'll be fine," Ethan replied, forcing a grin. "We've been to haunted places before." "Yeah, but this one is different," Lucas muttered, staring at the dark building. "This place has a reputation." Still, they climbed through a broken section of the fence and made their way inside. The entrance hall was vast, with high ceilings and peeling wallpaper. The smell of mildew and decay filled the air. Old wheelchairs and rusted hospital beds were scattered around. Faintly, they could see the scorch marks on the walls from the fire decades ago. They turned on their cameras and began their investigation. The first signs. "Is there anyone here with us?" Sarah asked, holding the spirit box. The device crackled with static. For a few moments, there was nothing but white noise. Then a faint whisper. "Help." The group exchanged nervous glances. "Who needs help?" Ethan asked. "Trapped. Fire." The voice was barely audible, but it sent chills down their spines. Lucas suddenly shuddered. "Did you guys feel that? It just got really cold." Ava turned her flashlight toward the hallway ahead. A sudden bang echoed through the asylum, as if a door had slammed shut. "Okay, that was definitely real," she said, gripping her flashlight tighter. They continued deeper into the building, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The old asylum seemed to breathe around them, the wind whispering through the broken windows like a dying sigh. Then Sarah froze. "Guys," she whispered, "I swear I just saw someone move in that room." She pointed to a door that hung slightly ajar. Ethan, ever the fearless leader, pushed it open. The room was filled with rusted medical equipment, old patient beds, and scattered papers. But there was something else. Something that made their skin crawl. Handprints, dozens of them, smeared in black soot covering the walls. Some looked fresh. A loud scraping noise made them all jump. The wheelchair in the corner of the room had moved on its own. "Okay," "We're leaving," Lucas said, his voice shaking. But before they could turn back, the spirit box crackled again. No escape. A door down the hallway slammed shut. Their hearts pounded as they realized they were no longer alone in Blackwood Asylum. Lucas grabbed Sarah's arm. "We need to get out of here. Now!" Ethan hesitated, gripping his camera tightly. "Wait. We came here for proof. If we leave now, we have nothing but some noises and a moving wheelchair." Ava shot him a glare. "Are you kidding me? That thing just said no escape. What more proof do you need?" Before Ethan could argue, the spirit box crackled again. "Stay." The voice was clearer this time, deep, distorted, and unnatural. A cold breeze swept through the hallway, even though there were no windows intact. The air smelled of something burnt, like old smoke mixed with decay. Lucas turned his flashlight toward the far end of the corridor. "What the hell is that?" They all turned. In the dim light, they saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was barely visible, just an outline. But the worst part, it was watching them. Then it moved. Not like a person walking, but like a flickering image, appearing a step closer with each second. The lights on their cameras glitched, flashing on and off. Ava let out a terrified gasp as the temperature dropped even further. "Run!" Sarah shouted. They bolted down the hallway, their footsteps echoing through the abandoned asylum. Ethan tried to keep his camera steady, panting as they ran past broken hospital beds and rusted medical carts. The air grew thicker, as if something was pressing down on them. They reached the main hall, but the entrance door, the very door they had walked through minutes ago, was now shut tight. Lucas yanked on the handle. "It won't open." "Move!" Ethan joined him, trying to push it open, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if someone, was holding it shut from the other side. Behind them, the air crackled. The spirit box, still in Sarah's grip, let out a long, distorted screech. Then a voice, clearer than before. "You shouldn't have come." The group turned, their backs pressed against the locked door. Down the hallway, the figure had stopped. It stood motionless, barely more than a shadow, but now its eyes, two hollow, burning pits, were visible. The walls of the asylum groaned as if the building itself was alive. Then the lights in the hall flickered and went out. Ava screamed. The darkness swallowed them. Ethan fumbled with his flashlight. The second it flicked back on, his stomach dropped. The figure was right in front of them. A skeletal face, its skin charred and peeling, leaned close to Ethan. Its mouth opened unnaturally wide, revealing blackened teeth. A voice, raw and filled with rage, hissed, "Burn with us!" The moment those words were spoken, Ethan felt something grab his wrist, an invisible force, ice-cold and impossibly strong. He was yanked forward. His camera slipped from his grip, clattering to the ground. "Ethan!" Sarah grabbed his other arm, pulling him back. The others rushed to help, yanking him away from whatever had tried to drag him into the abyss. The spirit box let out another burst of static. Then, as suddenly as it had started, everything went silent. The weight on Ethan's wrist vanished. The doors behind them creaked and burst open on their own. Without hesitation, they ran. Bursting outside, they didn't stop until they were past the rusted gate, gasping for air. The asylum loomed behind them, its broken windows like empty eyes. For a long moment, no one spoke. Ethan was the first to break the silence. Did anyone else hear what it said?" Lucas nodded, his face pale. "Burn with us." Sarah shuddered. "The fire, the patients who died. What if they're still trapped there?" Ava wiped her face with trembling hands. "We are never coming back here." No one disagreed. Ethan reached for his camera, but his hands were shaking. He flipped through the footage, hoping they had captured something, anything that could explain what had just happened. But as he played back the recording, his stomach twisted. There was no figure, no whispering voices, no flickering lights. just static. But at the very end of the clip, just before it cut out completely, 4 words appeared in distorted, glitching text across the screen. "You brought them back." Ethan stared at the screen, his breath shallow. The words, "You brought them back," flickered for a second before the footage cut to black. "What the hell does that mean?" Ava whispered, her voice barely audible over the night wind. Lucas shook his head, still catching his breath. "Maybe it's just a glitch." Ethan wasn't convinced. His camera had recorded everything, yet none of the terrifying moments, no shadowy figure, no whispers, no flickering lights, were there. Only static. And those 4 words. Sarah was already heading toward the car. "We need to leave. Now." The others didn't argue. They piled into the vehicle, locking the doors. Ethan, still gripping his camera, kept looking at the asylum in the rearview mirror. It stood silent, but something about it felt different, like it was watching them. Lucas started the car, the headlights cutting through the darkness. The road back was eerily quiet. No birds, no insects, just silence. As they drove, a thick fog rolled in, clinging to the trees like ghostly fingers. Then it happened. The radio, which had been off, crackled to life. A faint voice whispered through the static, "You can't leave." The car jerked as if something had slammed into it. Lucas cursed, gripping the wheel. "What the hell was that?" Ava turned, her eyes wide. "It's in the back seat." Sarah screamed. Ethan spun around. For a split second, he saw it. A charred figure crouched in the back seat, its hollow eyes burning into him. Its blackened fingers reached toward Sarah. Lucas swerved, tires screeching against the pavement. The car skidded onto the side of the road, barely avoiding a tree. The impact jolted them, but the second they looked back, the figure was gone. Panting, Ethan grabbed his camera, fumbling to turn it on. The screen remained black, but a distorted voice whispered from the speaker, "We are with you now." Nobody spoke. They sat in the car, frozen, the weight of those words sinking in. Then, without warning, Lucas hit the gas. They didn't stop driving until they were miles away from Blackwood Asylum. 1 week later, Ethan sat alone in his apartment, staring at his computer screen. After what happened, none of them spoke about that night. They deleted the video footage. They abandoned their YouTube channel. They pretended it never happened. But something was wrong. Ethan hadn't been sleeping. Every night he heard whispers in his room. Shadows flickered in the corners of his vision. His apartment felt colder even when the heat was on. And the worst part, his camera wouldn't turn off. No matter what he did, the screen stayed on, showing nothing but static. Then, that night, as he watched in horror, the static cleared, and he saw them. Lucas, Sarah, and Ava, all sitting in their own rooms, unaware of what was behind them. The burned figures. They weren't trapped in the asylum anymore. They had followed them home. The end.